I'm going to go ahead and get us started this morning. Welcome everyone to the Mirowitz-Centerfeld program today, Soccer Made in St. Louis. And I am going to turn it over to Myron Holtzman for the official introduction for our speaker today. Thank you, Myron.
Okay, good morning, guys. The guy I'm about to introduce has been one of the foremost soccer experts, not only in St. Louis, but throughout the United States. I met Dave Lange when he joined me at the St. Louis Globe-Democrat in 1976. And little did I know then, he'd take to the soccer beat almost as much as us older guys take to our afternoon naps. And little did I know then that he'd become a lifelong friend. Dave covered soccer from high schools to St. Louis University to professional teams like the St. Louis Steamers and the St. Louis Ambush. When the Globe shuttered its doors in 1986, Lange continued as a communications professional. He worked in corporate communications for General Dynamics and Anheuser-Busch. While at AB, he started the Cardinals Game Day magazine. Since retiring, Dave has written several soccer books and has taught communication courses at UMSL and Webster universities. In 2011, Dave wrote the book Soccer Made in St. Louis, a history of the game in America's first soccer capital. The book is the only comprehensive history of the game in St. Louis. A second edition of the book is scheduled for publication this month, in August 2022. If that isn't enough, Dave holds a coaching license from the U.S. Soccer Federation and a coaching certificate from the Royal Dutch Football Association. Gentlemen, I give you my friend, Dave Lange.
Thanks, Myron, for making my life sound interesting. Good morning, everybody. My job today is hopefully to talk to you about something you'll find interesting. Also among the group that's here so far is Jim Leaker, who's the president of the St. Louis Soccer Hall of Fame. Welcome, Jim. And Jim will be another great source of information as we go through the presentation. I'm sure he'll be happy to help answer any questions you might have. We'll have plenty of time for questions, so feel free to jump in whenever you'd like. What I thought I'd do is just kind of run through a little presentation I put together about what's happened in soccer in St. Louis in the last year. I had the privilege of presenting to you a year ago last June. So thank you for having me again. As Myron said, I wrote a book called Soccer Made in St. Louis, which is, you'll see the cover here on the screen. It came out in August of 2011. And it talks about, as it says in the title, a history of the game in America's first soccer capital. And for those of you who have been in St. Louis for any amount of time, you probably be aware that soccer is a huge sport in St. Louis and has been since as far back as the 1870s, when we can find records of the first game in St. Louis. Just to kind of repeat a few things that Myron talked about here. Whoops. There we go. The book came out in 2011, sold out in 2014, which might sound impressive, but we only printed 2,500 copies. So it's highly collectible with a smiley face on it. We're putting out a new edition a year from now to bring things up to date. And as Myron mentioned, I worked at the Globe Democrat with Myron, where I met him, and we've been great friends ever since. Very fortunate to know Myron and having worked and been a friend with him for many years. I worked at Anheuser-Busch in corporate communications. I currently teach at UMSL and Webster University in their communications programs, mostly public relations courses. And in the past, I was a head coach at Busch Soccer Club, which became St. Louis Soccer Club, and is now known as St. Louis Scott Gallagher. I coached there for about a dozen years. So enough about that. Let's kind of get into what I wanted to talk about, and please feel free to jump in at any time. In August of 2019, Major League Soccer, which is the professional sports league in the United States, announced that a franchise had been awarded to St. Louis. And St. Louis became the one of the teams in the league. There are now 27 teams currently active. The map shows you where they're located. When St. Louis joins, along with Charlotte, there'll be 29 teams in the league. So as you can see, it's a nationwide league, as well as having teams in Vancouver, Montreal, and Toronto. The league's been around since 1996, and it's become quite in its early years, it had some issues getting started, but it's been a very solid league for about the last 10, 15 years now, with attendance, steadily growing every year. The most recent year that's really applicable will be 2019, before the COVID pandemic hit. The league was averaging about 21,000 people in 2019, which is a great average, considering that most of the stadiums they play in are soccer specific stadiums that hold about 20,000 people. So they're playing at capacity in most of their soccer stadiums. There are a few teams like Atlanta that play in their NFL stadiums. So they're playing much larger venues, but primarily they're teams that play in small soccer specific facilities. The value of each team has risen dramatically. When the league started, you could get in for about $5 million. Now the valuation is about 300 million or higher. They didn't really say exactly how much St. Louis paid to get in, but it's thought to be around that $300 million figure. So I'm going to talk about basically what's happened since last year, when I talked about how St. Louis had a team in the league. So some of the things that have happened in the last year are significant. If any of you have been down to Union Station or have seen the reports in the news or the pictures, there's a huge construction project going on just west of the stadium. That's all for the Major League Soccer team that's coming to St. Louis. So we're going to talk about how they're building a stadium and a training complex. It's a huge investment, and it's really going to remake that part of downtown just west of Union Station. So some of the things that have happened since last year, in March, shortly after we talked, the league said that the team would be delayed for a year because of the COVID pandemic, which was really a godsend to the team because it gave them an extra year to get ready. In the last year, they announced the name of the team. They started taking season ticket deposits. They found a jersey sponsor, and we'll talk about the significance of that as we get into this. They broke ground on the stadium, and they started hiring people and building out the organization. So a lot has happened in the last year, and I'm going to bring you up to date on what's happened since in the last 12 months or so. The first thing I mentioned, there was a 1-year delay in the start of the franchise. It was originally supposed to start playing in March of 2022. That would have really been a tough thing to bite off and chew and get done. Build a stadium, get a team ready, and have it ready to play in March of 2022. The team is owned by a majority of women, primarily from the Taylor family, which owns Enterprise Rent-A-Car, which is the largest rent-a-car company in the world. And Carolyn Kindle Betts from the Taylor family is sort of the face of the franchise and is considered the lead owner of the team. The minority owner is Jim Cavanaugh, who was one of the co-founders of Worldwide Technology in St. Louis, which is a multi-billion-dollar a year technology company. And when they found out they had a year to get the extra to get the thing started, Carolyn said this, it allowed them to take a deep breath and really dig in deeply to what they wanted to get done. So let's talk about what they've gotten done in the last year. The first thing they did, they took some season ticket deposits in September. That's when they opened ticket sales. They broke the league record. They got 30,000 deposits in the first 15 minutes when they opened ticket sales last September 16th. After 24 hours, they had 50,000 deposits. To kind of put that in perspective, each person could reserve up to 8 seats. So the actual per person deposits in the first 24 hours was somewhere above 16,000. That's a heck of a lot of people who are interested in getting tickets. This doesn't mean to necessarily buy season tickets, but they're in line to get them if they so desire. The stadiums, I said, will hold, around 20,000. So they're, if they can get most of those people to sign up, they'll have a good part of the stadium already committed in terms of attendance. Then they picked the name of the team. The name of the team is St. Louis City Soccer Club. The name was announced last August 13th. The logo is on the left. People have wondered, what the heck does that mean? It means that if you notice the top, there's the arch, the curved symbol, and then below it, there are two double lines representing the confluence of the Mississippi and Missouri rivers to represent St. Louis. The colors are kind of interesting. They call the red a city red. It's really more of a hot pink. And it turns out that Carolyn Kindle Betts, who we see in the picture, loves hot pink. She wore a hot pink dress when they announced the formation of the team. So they went with sort of a hot pink color with navy blue on the logo. So that's a little bit on how the naming of the team. One of the next major event that happened, they got a jersey sponsor. In Major League Soccer, you're allowed to put advertisements on the front of the jersey. That's a huge deal in terms of revenue. Nestle Purina is going to be the jersey sponsor. That was important in St. Louis City because it's a local company, also headed by a woman who is Nina Lee Kruger, who you see on the left holding a dog. And being a pet-friendly company, it's good PR for them as well. So they've got a local company, a pet-friendly company as their jersey sponsor, and that's worth several $1 million because Purina is going to get exposure every time you see a picture of St. Louis City playing. You're going to see Purina on the front of the jersey. We're not sure how much they paid, but the team in New York is sponsored by Red Bull, and they paid almost $6 million to put their logo on the front of the New York team's jerseys. They can also sell sponsorships on their right and left sleeves. So they'll be, they can make some additional money off of that too. And in European soccer, this is even a greater revenue source. You may have heard Real Madrid, which is probably one of the most famous soccer teams in the world. Their jersey sponsor paid $413 million over 5 years to put their name on the front of their jersey. So you can get an idea of the revenue possibilities here for the team by finding someone to sponsor the front of the jersey. I think what you might really find most interesting, though, is talking about the stadium. The name and jersey sponsor are important, but the real priority is getting the stadium built. As I mentioned, this is a major construction project that's remaking downtown west of Union Station. St. Louis City is very unique in that they're building their stadium, their training complex, and their team headquarters all together in this location. It's the only team in Major League Soccer that has the team headquarters, the training facility, and the stadium in one place. And it's one of the few teams in all of US pro sports that has everything together in one location. How much are they paying for everything? Well, when you throw in the cost of building all those facilities, we're probably getting into the $400 million range. So it's quite an expensive project, and this is all privately funded, which is important. So the Taylor family and Jim Kavanaugh are kicking in almost 100% of all these costs, which is great for St. Louis. So let's talk a little bit about the facilities. As you can see the picture on the screen here, you'll see the stadium on the right. That's north of Market Street. You'll see Union Station in the lower left corner. And just west of Union Station on that side of Market Street is a training facility. The commissioner of Major League Soccer said that the financial commitment that St. Louis City is making is unprecedented in Major League Soccer. We talked about it's maybe a $400 million investment. That's kind of a ballpark figure. It could be a little more, could be somewhat less, but it's not too far off. And the whole philosophy on building the stadium is making this part of an entertainment corridor, starting with the Gateway Arch at the top of the picture, and then going west to Busch Stadium and Ballpark Village, then the Enterprise Center where the Blues play, then Union Station with the new Ferris wheel and the aquarium. Then we have the soccer stadium just west of that. And going west on Market Street, you hit Harris Stowe State University, St. Louis University, and eventually Forest Park. So this is part of what's envisioned as an entertainment corridor running from the Gateway Arch all the way out to Busch Stadium, all the way out to Forest Park, I'm sorry. So as far as the stadium itself goes, this is the most recent construction picture taken about 2 weeks ago. They were scheduled to put in the last piece of steel last week, which means that now they'll start building into the seating, the clubs, the various facilities that go into a stadium once you get the skeleton put in. So that's the next thing on the stadium agenda that's going up right now. Now that they're actually starting to get into actually building out the stadium, we're learning more about how it's going to be set up. The stadium configuration is going to include basically 5 levels of seats, and we're going to talk about each of those and how they're going to look in the stadium, and a general idea of what it's going to cost if you go to a game. First, we're talking about the seats, and if you're looking at from field level, the area in red would be the suites, just above the main seating. If you remember that the ability to build party suites was a big motivation in the Cardinals building the current Busch Stadium, because that's a big revenue producer. To give you some idea, we know that the cost of a season ticket in a suite is going to be at least $100,000 per season, and they're looking for a long-term commitment of several years. So if you want to sit in a suite, it's going to cost you a big chunk of change. The reason, again, is they want to set up a big and long-lasting revenue source in their high-end seats. The next level of seating are the boxes, and those are the areas in red if you're looking down at the stadium from above. There are suites down at field level, and those are very expensive. The ones in the 4 corners where the red triangles are the least expensive. Those are about $2,500 per person per season. And there's no long-term commitment there. The season, I should add, is 17 regular season games. So if you're buying a season ticket, you're buying a ticket to see 17 games running from March until about early October. So it's a long season, lots of games, and they're and a lot of money to go see it. The next level of seats are called the club level. There's clubs at the lower level. That's called the VIP pitch club. If you look on the left there at the lower level in red, that's where the VIP pitch club is. Those season tickets are going for about $8,500 a year. They want a 3 to 5 year commitment. For those, you get the seating and you get unlimited food and beverage. The next level is called the West Main and Upper Club, which is on the right and kind of the middle in red. Those are running for about $5,000 a year. Again, they need you to commit for 3 to 5 years, and you get a loaded amount of food and beverage on your ticket. And then the next level would be the General Reserve, which is where people like me are probably going to sit. And that's most of the stadium in red. That's the entire east side of the stadium, and the north, the south end and the upper level of the north end. We don't know the pricing on that yet, but that's where most people are probably going to sit. And will be interesting to see what they're going to charge per game to play, to sit in those areas. And the final one, and kind of a unique thing for a stadium in St. Louis, they're going to have a supporters section. That's in the north end of the stadium, just above the north goal. That's standing room only, and this is for your very rabid supporters of soccer to stand and cheer the team and be right behind the goal and generally make life hell for the opposing team by shouting and playing drums the whole game. It's kind of a unique aura for soccer. You'll see this at all the big clubs around the world. They have a huge supporter section where people gather to yell and scream and shout and have a good time and drink lots of beer. So that's going to be in the north end of the stadium. We don't know the pricing yet, but the supporter section is kind of interesting. This is a diagram of it looking at the north end of the stadium. It's in the lower level. There's 3,200 standing room only capacity in that supporter section. They have a drum stand right in the middle, so they can constantly beat a drum. They have 3 what are called capo stands. This is where the cheerleaders are that orchestrate the cheering. And then across the top, there's a 257-foot rigging for a banner that they can drop down before the game. So it's going to be a huge banner, probably have a St. Louis City logo. It's called a TIFO banner. So that's kind of an interesting part of that stadium because it's a unique thing about to soccer. And the supporters group in St. Louis is called the St. Louligans. They're the people who are going to be in the standing room supporters section. This is a picture of them at in the soccer park in Fenton, where we had a minor league team and they would occupy the whole corner of the stadium. Every time the team scored a goal, they'd shoot off smoke bombs and beat drums and generally make lots of noise for the 90 minutes of the game. So that's kind of a thumbnail overview of the stadium, but the stadium is just one part of the project, as I mentioned. In July of this year, we found out that St. Louis City had applied for a $20 million permit to build a parking garage at 1900 Olive, 4-story parking garage. And if you know about the layout of the area, the stadium is going to be near Metrolink stations. There's one right by the Enterprise Center, about a block west of there. So it's a convenient location for the Metrolink. There's also all the parking at Union Station and nearby that for Blues games that you can use. So there should be plenty of parking to accommodate this too. This is an artist concept that St. Louis City released of the garage. So let's kind of look at the overall footprint of what this is. If you look at the entire layout of the team, this is kind of if you're standing at I-64 and looking north, what you would see at the bottom of the bottom left of the pictures where the training facility starts, 3 training fields, and then just north of the training facility is a stadium. They're building a tunnel underneath Market Street from the training facility to the stadium so the players can dress and warm up or whatever in a training facility and then go under the tunnel into the stadium itself when it's game time. And then, as I mentioned, there's going to be the parking garage. The teams also purchased a building they're going to make into the team headquarters. There'll be a team store. So it's quite a complex. And it's a big footprint just west of Union Station. Another way to look at it is if you look at this from a map standpoint. On the left side, you see the training center. There are 3 main fields, and then another field for goalkeeper training. There are team buildings there where the team can, work out inside as far as like exercise rooms and dressing rooms and things like that, all configured to make it a good training experience for the players. And then again, across the street, we see the stadium. There's a pavilion for people to gather and a team store and things of that nature. So as you can see, it's quite a complex just talking about the training facility and the pavilion. So if you're looking north from South 21st Street, this is what you're going to see. On the left, or I'm sorry, on the right here, if you're familiar with the Union Station layout, Maggie O'Brien's would be just off the picture to the right, and the parking lot that's just west of Union Station would be to your lower right off the picture. So once this thing is all finished, this is what it's going to look like if you're coming from 21st Street going north. The pavilion's on the left. The training facility would be behind the pavilion. And then the stadium is right across the street. So it should be quite an impressive facility. The training facilities are very important. If you're going to have a good team, you have to have good facilities, and they've planned quite a complex. These are the 2 main training fields across Market Street from the stadium. They've planned these very carefully. In talks I've had with people on the team, they've sought advice from a lot of the big teams in the world on how to build a world-class training facility. and they're confident that this will be one of the best training facilities for soccer, not only in the United States, but in the world. They hired a person who's going to run the team about 15 months ago, and his name is Lutz Pfannenstiel. He was hired in time that he could have input into the building of the training facility to make it as good of a training facility as they could possibly do. And Lutz has probably been the key hiring of the team so far. We're going to talk a little bit about the hirings. Lutz Pfannenstiel is the sporting director of the team, and that's equivalent to a baseball general manager. He's basically in charge of running everything related to the team itself, to hiring coaches, signing players, hiring medical staff, trainers, and all that, and all of the associated material. He comes from Germany, where he was the sporting director at several teams in their main soccer league in Germany, which is called the Bundesliga. He is a former goalkeeper, and his claim to fame is he played in every region of the world. In the world soccer, there are 6 regions of the world, and he's played in every one of them: North and Central America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia. He was a professional goalkeeper everywhere in the world, and as a result, he has connections with everybody. So he's been a great source of hiring people, getting things built, and getting things ready. He's an experienced hand at doing all this, and he's probably the biggest hire they've made since they launched the team. One of the things he's done, and it's an integral part of every soccer team, is he's established what's called the Youth Academy. And that's all happened in the last 6 to 8 months. A youth academy is basically what's called the path to their major league team. Every soccer team in the world that knows what they're doing has a youth academy. It's not only a way to develop players for the teams, but it's a profit center, because the players that don't make the team can be sold to other teams anywhere in the world. So it becomes a profit center, as well as a source of talent for St. Louis City. They set it up in several age group levels. The lowest level is called the community satellite centers, where kids age 7 to 13 can come and play. It's kind of a loosely organized thing just to get people, get kids exposed to start playing soccer at this level. Then it gets serious when you're 14 years old. You enter the academy at 14 and 15, where these teams are coached by guys and gals hired by St. Louis City. And it's all designed to develop players who could someday play for the first team. And then you go up the pyramid. There's teams at 16 and 17 years old. Then there's a reserve team for players who may not play a lot on the first team, but to give them some touches on the ball in a minor league setting. The key thing about all this is that it's free. So if your kid is good enough to make the academy at 14, you're not going to pay a dime, which is unique in St. Louis, because if you're familiar with soccer and you play club soccer, you're paying quite a bit of money. You're getting into the thousands of dollars for your kid to play soccer at a high level. That's not the case here. They're making an effort to make soccer free for kids. They're making an effort to get into areas of the city where soccer has not been traditionally played. They're trying to get into the African-American audience, who typically has not played soccer in the past. They're trying to tap into the ethnic groups in St. Louis. You may be aware there's a heavily Bosnian influence in St. Louis. Around 100,000 people from Bosnia live in St. Louis. Those are a source of great soccer players. There's already several guys from the St. Louis Bosnian community who's made a mark in soccer, including one who's played at the highest levels of soccer internationally, a guy named Vedad Ibisevic, who's now retired. So they're trying to tap into all these audiences to get kids involved. And, you know, there's a method behind that as well. It creates interest in the team. If your kid is playing for the team, for the academy, or you know a kid who's playing for the academy, you're likely to come out and buy tickets and watch the main team play in the big stadium. So it's a revenue source for the team as well as a source of players. The second level on that, the U23 team, they're going to start playing next summer in a minor league that Major League Soccer has set up for reserve teams. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when they get going. They haven't said where they're going to play yet. The stadium won't be finished by then, and it's a kind of a league where it's just to get these guys experience. It's not to attract huge numbers of people to watch them. But they start playing next summer. The academy is going to start this coming fall, so the kids are going to start playing in the fall. So all of this is not just something on paper, but it's something that's actually happening right now. So that's kind of what's happened in the last year. Some of the things to look forward to in the next year or so. There'll be stadium naming rights, which again will be a source of several $1 million for the team. What company is going to come forward and sponsor the stadium. They'll be hiring a head coach. They'll be showing what the actual jersey looks like. And that's another big deal because once those jerseys are out there, people will start buying them. So that's a revenue source for the team as well. Then they'll be signing players. If you're wondering what kind of players they want to sign, Lutz Pfannenstiel told me that they're looking for young, hungry players from around the world to play for the team. You may have heard of Lionel Messi, probably the best player in the world, he said, we're not going to be signing Lionel Messi, so don't get your hopes up. They're going to be getting young, hungry players who are willing to play for less money or are willing to, put 100% into the game. So they'll be signing players. There's also a lot of speculation of whether they're going to bring in a women's professional team. There's a women's league in the United States called the National Women's Soccer League. Right now, I think there are 9 teams in the league. The nearest one plays in Kansas City. And they're always looking to expand that league. So since this is a woman-owned organization, it'll be interesting to see if they, at some point, start a professional women's team. Because obviously there'll be plenty of dates to play in the stadium. And that's another point that should be made. The stadium is not there just for 17 games a year. They'll be used for a lot of other events, athletic activities, college soccer, college football can play there. They could have the NCAA Division II football playoff games there. They could have soccer exhibition games. The U.S. national team probably will wind up playing some games there when they play exhibit friendlies with other nations. So stadium's going to be used for a lot of things other than just the 17 soccer games. So I've kind of covered everything I wanted to talk about. That was the year that was in soccer in St. Louis. One thing I didn't have time to put on the slide, and this just happened in the last couple of days, a guy from St. Louis, a 21-year-old player named Josh Sargent, has signed to play in the English Premier League, which is the #1 league in the world. He's going to play for a team called Norwich City. He's been playing for the last 3 years in Germany for a top level team there called Werder Bremen. And just a couple of days ago, he signed with Norwich City in the Premier League, and they play Liverpool in their season opener. So it'll be interesting to see how Josh Sargent does at the highest levels of soccer. He'll be the second St. Louis player who's ever played in the English Premier League. The first is Tim Ream, who's currently in England now, but he plays in the second division for a team called Fulham. So that's kind of the year that was in soccer. If any of you are active on social media, I have a Twitter account where I put soccer news up there several times a day that's related to St. Louis. So follow me if you'd like to do that. And I'll be happy to take any questions. And I'm sure Jim Leaker will also be happy to answer questions. I should mention that Jim, who's the president of the St. Louis Soccer Hall of Fame, had a spectacular playing career. He was the Rookie of the Year in the old North American Soccer League in 1970. He played on NCAA championship teams at St. Louis University. And he's been president of St. Louis Soccer Hall of Fame for what, 9-10 years now, Jim? Yeah, he's on mute. He's on mute right now. But anyway, that's the formal part of the presentation. I'll be happy to take any questions you might have. So anybody have any questions about what we've talked about?
I have one.
Yes.
I have a question. Two items. You may not be through with my questions. First one is, our big professional sports, baseball and hockey, we have television. And I'm wondering if you would have television, maybe not for the local crowd, but to send out to the opposing team, to their cities. Has there been any comment about even arranging for television?
They have the league has a national television contract with several cable companies right now. You can see their games on ESPN. And it's interesting that the ESPN's league soccer commentator is a St. Louis guy named Taylor Twellman, who played at St. Louis, played in Major League Soccer. They do have a national TV contract. I don't know about the local arrangements. They haven't even gotten into that point yet about, who's going to carry the games on TV in St. Louis if they have a local broadcast agreement.
I have one other question.
Sure.
It's always been my understanding that St. Louis has been very popular with soccer because we have so many Catholic kids going to private Catholic schools. And they emphasize that quite a bit more than perhaps the public schools do. And even I heard things like, well, they like soccer because they don't have expensive equipment to pay for to put a team on the ground. But I once also watched a neighbor who was a Catholic kid, and he could bounce a ball on his foot. He put his foot hard, his one leg horizontal, standing on one leg, and just bounce that ball up and down. So you don't do that in soccer, but it was just teasing, showing off. Are you familiar with this?
Well, I'll speak in behalf of that. I have a number of grandkids who are soccer players themselves, and when you play on a team, those are some of the skills that they're looking for. If you could control the ball, and the juggling aspect of controlling a ball is one of those items because it could be done in a short space. And if you go out to Scott Gallagher or Lou Hughes operations, you'll see a lot of kids and not a whole lot of space to be doing any other drills if they're working on juggling. So that's one of the main things that they do is learn how to juggle the ball. And if you can control the ball with not necessarily looking at it, it's a very good sense that you have with a soccer ball that you can be able to do anything you want with it on a soccer field.
Thank you very much.
John?
Yeah, in other leagues like hockey and back when baseball expanded, there was an expansion draft. Is there anything like that in soccer? I mean, are we going to all start with young players? Obviously, young players are good, but it'd be nice to get some experience in there.
Yeah, they'll have an expansion draft. The league has done that in the past whenever they've started a new team. And it works similar to hockey and where, each team exposes a certain number of players and then the new team gets to pick whomever they'd like off of that list of exposed players. Like the Blues did in the most recent NHL expansion draft. They exposed certain numbers of players and the expansion team picked whomever they wanted off those lists.
Sam, go ahead.
Yes. It used to be that in St. Louis soccer was the province of the Catholic community, but that's a two-generation-old generalization, and it's really become mainstream throughout St. Louis, and public high schools are actually winning state soccer competitions.
Absolutely. Yeah. You see, especially I live in St. Charles County in Fort Zumwalt, the school system here, they've produced a couple state champions in the last few years. So you're right. It's become more of a sport that's spread out among all the kids, not just the kids who are Catholics. And it's starting to reach into the African-American community. We've produced a player named Mark Segbers who plays professional soccer. He's an African-American. It's, to my knowledge, I think he's the first African-American out of St. Louis who's played professionally. Is that right, Jim? Can you recall anybody else?
I cannot recall anybody else, and it was pretty neat that Mark was honored as one of our future stars at our banquet as a junior going into his senior year at Vianney High School. So the expectations of him were set pretty high at an early age. You know, he came through the Scott Gallagher organization. Then he got a scholarship to the University of Wisconsin, where he was All-American, and actually scored the winning penalty kick in their NCAA tournament game to put them into the final, I want to say the final 16. But just a great young gentleman. Have a really good relationship with him.
Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, St. Louis City's philosophy is to open soccer up to everybody in the community, regardless of what kind of income they have. Their vision is to make this a free opportunity for kids in the city who want to play and who have the ability to play at a high level as they get older. They're going to pay for everything instead of the kids' parents paying for it. So the fact that soccer's become more widespread is even going to be more evident, I think, in the incoming years as St. Louis City gets their academy up and running and opens it up to kids to play.
And they're out watching players right now. I've seen some of the St. Louis City SC people going out to the Creve Course Soccer Complex. I've seen them at high school games. So they're out there doing their job. They're out there working as hard as they can to look for talent.
Yeah, and when Lutz Pfannenstiel was hired, he was going to games almost every day. I mean, you'd see pictures of him all over the place watching St. Louis kids play soccer.
Well, it certainly is very exciting, the whole stadium, and thank you for the wonderful pictures, because I haven't been down in that area for quite some time, and I know maybe many of us have not, but I thank you for the presentation. It was just very, very thoughtful, very good. Thank you. Does anyone else have questions?
Dave, I take it that there are a total of 34 league games during the year?
Yeah, 34 regular season games and then playoffs.
Okay, and will they have exhibition games?
Yeah, I'm sure they will. I don't know if they'll be played at the stadium or if they're going to play like in smaller venues just to get people interested. You know, they could always play out the soccer park, which seats about 6,000 in their main field. They could play exhibition games there or in the training complex next to the stadium and just open it up that people come watch. That's stuff that's way far ahead of them right now. They got a lot more on their plate to worry about, you know, in the next year or so, and getting the team actually built up and all the other elements in the stadium and things like that going.
Mm-hmm. Well, as I said before, Dave is probably one of the top soccer knowledge people in the United States, and we appreciate it every time you come on.
Thanks for having me. I really want to thank Jim Leaker for being here too, because Jim can correct me when I screw up something, and he can add all his great perspective.
I'm usually the one making mistakes.
Because, as I said, Jim's played at the highest levels, and you know he's been on the field putting in you know, playing against the great best players in the world, so he can give you some great perspectives on soccer too.
One thing I'll add, I had an opportunity to play 2 years at Busch Stadium. And one of the neat things that this new stadium will have is it's going to be soccer specific. It was awfully hard to be playing in front of 10,000 people in a 60,000 seat stadium at the old Busch Stadium. So it's going to be a lot more player friendly and supporter friendly. You know, if anybody, I just went there for the men's national team game, and it's very it's very entertaining to watch how people really get involved with the game. So they're so close to the field.
Yeah, to get to that point, I think St. Louis City is saying nobody's going to sit farther than 200 feet from the field. I mean, you're right on top of the field, which is the neat thing about a soccer stadium. It's built just for soccer rather than other sports as well. If you've ever been to a soccer game at Busch Stadium, you could be quite far away from the action if you've ever gone to any of the soccer games they played down there in the last 10 years.
Yeah, the current Busch Stadium saw Argentina there and the women's team. It was an interesting perspective, but you weren't close to the game.
No. And when you're close to the game, you really can see the skill of the players and appreciate, the effort that goes into it. I think they say that the players run anywhere from 5 to 7 miles a game. It's a very fast-paced game and very skillful game. And you can really appreciate it more when you're right on top of the field.
We never talked anything about the Olympics. The women kind of did well, but the men didn't even qualify.
Right. I mean, it's kind of interesting in this country, when you talk about successful international soccer on a national level, the women have been far better than the men, but the women had an advantage that they started right when women's soccer started. Whereas the men, they've been having to play catch up to countries that have been playing soccer for a lot longer. So it's a tough road when you're in for the men. The women were able to start right when everybody else did, and they had the best. They were able to establish themselves right away as a global powerhouse. And mentioning that, the current women's team, probably one of their best players is from St. Louis, Becky Sauerbrunn. She's close to having 200 appearances for the United States now, and she's close to the end of her career, but it's been a great career, and she's been a key factor in the success that the women have had, winning 2 World Cups and a gold medal and a bronze medal in the last 10 years.
And Kolupny has retired.
Roy Kolupny retired after they won the World Cup in 2015. She's from St. Louis as well. Becky, to get to the point about public school players, she's from Ladue High School. Becky played at the Virginia. Lori Kolupny came out of Narings Hall, which is a girls' Catholic school in Webster Groves, and Becky came from Ladue High School.
How is the divisions going to be set up in the new league?
The league is set up as like baseball and football. There'll be different. There's different conferences. It's there's one major. They're the major league. There are some minor leagues underneath them. They're not part of Major League Soccer. There's the United Soccer League has teams in this next division, and then there's a 3rd division and a 4th division run by the USL and other entities. So there are minor leagues underneath it, but Major League Soccer has its own major league, and then they have, as I mentioned, they're going to have a reserve league that starts next year for the players who don't play a lot, to get them some time on the ball and playing some games.
John, unmute.
You say that we're talking about the U.S. Major League Soccer, but how does that work with all the international teams? I mean, would the St. Louis club be someday in the World Cup, or is it part of? How does? Are there various levels? How does that work?
The St. Louis club will be in the major league in the United States. Major League Soccer is entering into some relationships with the Mexican Soccer League. So at some point, St. Louis also may be playing teams from Mexico. As far as the World Cup goes, that's a different setup. The best players from all professional teams are put together in a pool, and they draw from that pool to create the national team. So you could have the U.S. national team is composed of players who play anywhere in the world, like Josh Sargent, who I just mentioned, who's going to play in England. He's been on the national team the last few years. So they draw American citizens who play anywhere in the world. to create the national team that plays if they qualify for the World Cup. So it's kind of two different setups. There's the professional leagues, and then the national teams who play in the World Cup are two different entities.
And Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, please. When it was time for qualifications for the Olympic team for this past Olympics, the United States Soccer Federation actually sent the under 23 team to participate. I don't think any of the players that play on the World Cup team actually participated in that Olympic qualifications.
Yeah,
and
I'm
that
not
was
quite
one of
sure.
the things. Yeah, I think
I'm not
that's
quite sure
one of
what
the
the
things
rationale
that.
is for that, but yeah, but the World
Yeah.
Cup players are separate from the Olympic players.
Do we have any more questions? I do not think. Myron, do you have any
If I could
additional?
add,
Oh, sure, go ahead.
if I could add one more thing, if you want to find out some history of St. Louis soccer and the players that I'm responsible for that are in the St. Louis Soccer Hall of Fame, you can just Google St. Louis Soccer Hall of Fame, and our website comes up, and you can look under inductees. And I'm responsible for 950 men and women who have been inducted into the St. Louis Soccer Hall of Fame.
That's
Over
great.
the past 50
Amazing.
years. And we're pretty proud of what we've been able to accomplish. Oddly enough, I was able to find almost a picture for every person or an article that the person's name was mentioned in. There are still almost 100 people I have not been able to find any records of who were inducted posthumously back in the 1978 and 79 years, when they inducted over 200 people for their accomplishments before, I'll say right around the turn of the century. So, if you don't see a picture and you know somebody, let me know, because I'd like to be responsible to say, I want to see a picture in every single slot. So thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you for joining us.
I have another question. St. Louis has always been a hotbed of amateur soccer, but in my memory, there have been several abortive attempts at professional teams in St. Louis. They lasted a season, maybe not even a whole season. This obviously with the pre-sales and so on and so forth, this is going to be a big success. But what was the reason that those things did? Since St. Louis is such a big amateur venue, what happened to the professional? Why didn't they succeed before?
I'll let Jim speak to that in just a minute, because Jim played. Jim can tell you from a player's perspective. Jim, you tell him what you experienced, because you played professional soccer in St. Louis.
Yeah, the North American Soccer League was put together by Bob Herman and Lamar Hunt, basically, who were the minds behind the North American Soccer League. And they thought that they would get on the cutting edge of this new sport and try and get the best players that they could. And as it turned out, I guess the city of St. Louis decided that I could go out and see a good team play on a Sunday afternoon, and we don't have to spend any money by going to Crownlet Park or going to Fairgrounds Park, and we don't need to go down and see a team made up of local players. We were good, but we were playing against, and the league was playing against top-notch players. So it was kind of tough from the St. Louis standpoint to attract that fan base. And that's one of the things that is interesting about this new concept. We came up through the ranks of playing high school soccer and then club soccer, like Crownlet. I played at Crownlet Sunday morning, and then I've been associated with Cootis for so many years, up until today, basically. But now with this new system that they're installing with all the clubs, not only St. Louis SC, but Scott Gallagher and Lou Fuse, they have a tiered system also where players are being developed at a very early age and are brought up based on their accomplishments and their performances to the higher level teams. So that's what's, and once again, why we, if you want to call it, failed. My last year, we made it to the North American Soccer League finals. We ended up losing to the Cosmos 3-1, but we were there in the mix. So it's, and the following years when I didn't play, they still had a good following of players or of fans. But it ended up that the team was moved out to California. So that's the way things go.
Jim, wouldn't you say that a great deal of the problem was lack of a good place to play?
Yeah. Well, when I played, my first year was at Washington U, when it was still a grass field, and it was a nice field. My second 2 years, we were down at the stadium, which was artificial turf. The artificial turf then and the artificial turf now is completely different. You walk on a field out at the soccer park or at Creve Court, it's almost like walking on grass. It's unbelievable how the ball reacts, and that's what the league is hoping to keep that ball moving. You'll watch any international game or any game, even the if you see any pregame shots of the field, they're actually watering the field down to make sure that the ball keeps moving and it moves at a high speed. The venue is the venue at St. Louis is going to be by far something that you'll always remember.
Will the field be grass or artificial?
It's going to be natural grass.
I had an opportunity a couple of years ago at the 50th anniversary of the North American Soccer League. The Old Timers played an exhibition game at Frisco Stadium. That's the home of the Dallas what's the Dallas team's name?
FC Dallas.
FC Dallas, yeah. And I walked on their field, and it was all grass. Not the grass that I was expecting, but it was grass. I thought it would be a little bit better shape, but it got the job done. It gets the job done. It's just like playing baseball now. These fields that's in the back of Dave's pro background there. Busch Stadium is unbelievable to have an opportunity to play on that. So yeah.
Well, we're getting close to time. If we have any further questions or comments, this has been just very exciting. Go ahead.
Yeah, Judy, again, I just want to thank Dave and Jim, people I've known for a long time and know their way around the soccer pitch. How about that, Dave?
Yeah.
And I just want to thank them again for doing a fabulous job, which is not unexpected. You guys are great.
Well, we're looking forward to the
Thank you very
progress
much, Myron.
and getting to visit once it opens. And when did you say it was going to open again? Next summer?
March of 23.
Well, okay. A little bit longer.
Yeah, about a year and a half. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much again. Thank you, Myron. Thank you,
Thanks,
Jim
Miss Oliver.
and Dave. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Appreciate
All
it.
right.
Thanks.
We'll see
Bye-bye,
you
Judy.
again.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you.